My name is Erin, and at 36 years old, I never thought I'd be sitting at my husband's family Thanksgiving dinner listening to him call me useless in front of 12 people. The turkey I'd spent hours preparing sat there slightly darker on one side, while Derek's cruel words echoed through the dining room. But what happened next changed everything. My 17-year-old son Tyler stood up, his hands trembling, and said he had something to reveal about his father. Before Tyler speaks, let me ask where you're watching from today. Please hit like and subscribe if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Trust me, what Tyler revealed that night will show you that sometimes the people we protect the most become our unexpected heroes. I met Derek during my junior year at the University of Michigan. I was pre-med, spending my nights in the library studying organic chemistry, while he was the charming business major who somehow convinced me to take study breaks at the campus coffee shop. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room when he talked to me. His blue eyes would light up when he laughed at my nervous jokes about molecular structures, and his confidence seemed to fill every space he entered. We dated for 2 years before getting married right after graduation. I had been accepted to medical school at Northwestern, but when I found out I was pregnant with Tyler just 3 months after our wedding, everything changed. Derek promised it was just temporary. He said once he established his career at the investment firm in Connecticut, I could go back to school. We'd hire help for the baby. I'd still become the doctor I dreamed of being. But promises have a way of fading when reality sets in. After Tyler was born, Derek's support for my dreams evaporated like morning dew. Suddenly, medical school was too expensive. The timing was wrong. Tyler needed his mother, not a nanny. And honestly, didn't I see how good I was at being a mom? Why would I want to give that up for long hours at a hospital? His family didn't help matters. His mother, Margaret, had been a bank executive before retiring, and she never let me forget that she'd managed to raise 3 successful children while maintaining her career. The implication was clear every time she visited. If I couldn't handle both, perhaps I just wasn't as capable as she was. His father, Richard, a retired CEO, would nod along to Derek's explanations about our traditional family structure being best for Tyler. Derek's sister, Jennifer, a successful lawyer in Boston, would smile sympathetically while making little comments about how fulfilling her career was. And Andrew, Derek's brother, who became a cardiologist, would joke about how at least one person in the family married someone in medicine, even if I never quite made it there myself. The isolation started slowly, so gradually I hardly noticed it happening. First, it was the mommy groups I joined when Tyler was a baby. Derek said the women were gossipy and a bad influence. Then it was my college friends who wanted to meet for lunch when they were in town. Derek would schedule family obligations that conflicted, or he'd pick fights right before I was supposed to leave, making me too emotionally drained to go. My part-time job at the local library when Tyler started kindergarten lasted exactly 3 months before Derek convinced me that the house was suffering, that Tyler was acting out, because I wasn't home when he got back from school. By the time Tyler was in middle school, I had no friends of my own, no income, and no access to our finances beyond the credit card. Derek monitored for grocery shopping and household expenses. He handled all the bills, investments, and major purchases. When I asked to be more involved, he'd pull up spreadsheets full of numbers and talk rapidly about portfolios and market volatility until my eyes glazed over. Then he'd pat my hand and say this was why he handled these things, so I didn't have to worry my pretty head about it. The small humiliations became routine. At dinner parties with his colleagues, he'd interrupt me mid-sentence to correct some minor detail in a story I was telling. He'd laugh and say, I had such a creative memory. When I gained weight after having Tyler and struggled to lose it, he'd buy me gym memberships for birthdays and exercise equipment for Christmas, always with a concerned smile about my health. When I'd cook elaborate meals, he'd praise them to others, as if he'd planned the menu himself. When the house was spotless, he'd tour his business associates through it, talking about his high standards for our home. I became a ghost in my own life, visible only when something went wrong. The one time Tyler got a B on his report card, it was because I hadn't been helping him study properly. When the car needed new tires and I hadn't noticed the wear, it was my carelessness that could have endangered our son. But when Tyler made the honor roll or won his science fair, Derek would beam at school events accepting congratulations for his son's achievements as if he'd personally tutored him every night. 15 years of marriage had worn me down to a shadow of the confident pre-med student who used to dream about serving doctors without borders. I moved through my days in a carefully choreographed dance of cooking, cleaning, scheduling, and apologizing. Always apologizing. For dinner being 5 minutes late. For the grocery bill being $20 over budget. For Tyler needing new soccer cleats when his feet grew. For existing in a way that somehow never quite measured up to what Derek expected. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Derek announced his entire family would be coming for the holiday. Not asked, not discussed, just announced over morning coffee while scrolling through his phone. 20 people in total, including his parents, siblings, their spouses, children, and his elderly aunt from Florida. He rattled off a list of required dishes, his mother's traditional recipes that had to be made exactly right. Turkey, of course, but also ham because Andrew's wife didn't eat poultry. 3 types of potatoes. Green bean casserole, regular stuffing, and a gluten-free version for Jennifer's husband. Homemade cranberry sauce, not the canned stuff. Pumpkin pie, apple pie, pecan pie, and a chocolate cake for the kids. When I suggested we could hire a caterer for some of the dishes, Derek actually laughed. His family would know immediately if something was store-bought or catered. Besides, wasn't this what I did? I didn't work, so I had plenty of time to prepare. He'd make sure to give me the credit card to buy everything needed. I started planning that very day, creating spreadsheets of my own. Shopping lists organized by store cooking schedules broken down by the hour. A cleaning checklist for every room in the house. I tested the more complicated recipes in advance, serving them for dinner to make sure they met Derek's standards. The green bean casserole was too salty the first time. The apple pie crust wasn't flaky enough. The chocolate cake was too dry. Each failure was met with a disappointed sigh and a reminder that his mother would notice. Tyler watched it all from the kitchen table where he did his homework. At 17, he was more perceptive than Derek gave him credit for. When Derek left for work, Tyler would quietly help me with the shopping, carrying bags, and organizing the pantry. He offered to vacuum or do laundry while I cooked, but Derek had made it clear that housework was my responsibility. He didn't want his son growing up thinking men should do women's work. Still, Tyler found ways to help when Derek wasn't looking. He'd clear the table after dinner while Derek took his evening calls. He'd run the dishwasher while Derek watched his shows. Small acts of kindness that meant everything to me in those exhausting weeks of preparation. The day before Thanksgiving, I woke up at 5 in the morning to start the pies. They needed to be done in advance along with several casseroles that could be reheated. I was elbow deep in flour when Derek came downstairs at 8 dressed for work despite the holiday. An important client meeting, he said, though his breath smelled like cologne, not coffee. He'd be back by noon to help with anything I needed. At 6 that evening, he finally came home, not alone, but with 3 colleagues he'd invited to join us for Thanksgiving dinner. Did I mind? Of course not. I always made too much food anyway. They'd love to experience a real American Thanksgiving. I stood there in my flour-covered apron, exhaustion pulling at every muscle, and smiled. Of course they were welcome. I'd just need to run back to the store for more ingredients. The store was a nightmare of last-minute shoppers, but I managed to find what I needed. Another turkey breast, more potatoes, extra cream for the pies. Tyler came with me, pushing the cart while I frantically revised my cooking schedule in my head. We didn't talk about Derek's thoughtlessness. We'd long since stopped discussing the obvious. Thanksgiving morning arrived dark and cold. I'd set my alarm for 4:30 to get the turkeys in the oven on time. Derek had complained when it went off, pulling a pillow over his head and muttering about my inability to do anything quietly. I crept downstairs in the dark, starting coffee and preheating ovens, beginning the complex dance of timing everything perfectly. By the time Derek emerged at 10, the house smelled like heaven and looked like a bomb had gone off in the kitchen. Every surface was covered with dishes in various stages of preparation. He surveyed the chaos with disgust, asked why I couldn't keep things cleaner while cooking, then announced he was meeting Andrew for a quick 9 holes of golf. They'd be back before guests arrived at 2. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the gravy boat at his head. Instead, I nodded and suggested he might want a shower when he got back since people would be arriving soon. He waved dismissively already, heading to the garage for his clubs. Tyler appeared as soon as Derek's car left the driveway. Together, we worked like a well-oiled machine. He set the formal dining room table with the china Derek's grandmother had left us arranging the place cards I'd written out in calligraphy the night before. He folded napkins into elaborate shapes he'd learned from YouTube videos trying to make me smile. He polished silver and arranged centerpieces while I juggled pots and pans, checking temperatures and adjusting seasonings. At 1:30, with guests due in 30 minutes, Derek still wasn't home. The turkeys were resting, the sides were staying warm, and I was trying to shower and dress in 15 minutes when he finally walked through the door, flushed from the sun and beer grass stains on his golf shoes. Andrew was with him, equally relaxed and oblivious to the stress radiating from every surface of our home. Derek showered while I greeted his parents at the door, still fixing my earrings. Margaret's first comment was about the leaves on the front walkway that needed to be swept. Richard handed me their coats without a word, already looking for Derek to discuss the game. Jennifer arrived next with her perfect store-bought pie that she'd somehow make seem homemade, her husband and children trailing behind. More relatives poured in, filling the house with voices and expectations. When Derek finally emerged, freshly shaved and wearing the sweater I'd laid out for him, he was the perfect host. He toured people through the house, pointing out recent renovations he'd supposedly planned. He served drinks from the bar cart, telling stories about his successful deals at work. He accepted compliments about the delicious smells coming from the kitchen, as if he'd been basting the turkey himself all morning. The dining room looked beautiful, if I did say so myself. The table stretched to its full length with both leaves inserted, covered in my grandmother's lace tablecloth that I'd hand-washed and pressed the day before. The china gleamed, the crystal sparkled, and the autumn centerpieces Tyler had helped arrange added elegant touches of color. 23 place settings, each one perfect, each one representing hours of my work that would go unacknowledged. Derek stood at the head of the table, carving the turkey with theatrical precision while regaling everyone with a story about his latest triumph at work. Something about a merger he'd facilitated, numbers he'd crunched, a deal he'd saved from falling through. Margaret watched her son with undisguised pride, while Richard nodded approvingly. Jennifer's husband Marcus asked technical questions that Derek answered with authority, even though I'd heard him on the phone just last week, confused about the very same deal, taking credit for work his team had done. I moved between the kitchen and dining room, bringing out dish after dish. The sweet potato casserole with its perfectly browned marshmallow top. The green beans that had taken 3 attempts to get right. Mashed potatoes whipped to silky perfection. Gravy without a single lump. Stuffing that smelled like my childhood, made from my mother's recipe because Derek's mother's version had never turned out quite right, though I'd never admit that aloud. As I set down the turkey platter, Derek paused mid-carve. The side facing him was golden brown, crispy skinned, and picture perfect. But as he turned the bird to carve the other side, we all saw it. The back was darker, not burnt exactly, but definitely more well done than the front. A result of my oven's uneven heating that I'd tried to compensate for by rotating the pan, but with juggling 2 turkeys and everything else I'd missed 1 rotation. The room went quiet. Derek's face shifted from jovial host to something darker. He set down the carving knife with deliberate slowness, shaking his head. "Seriously, Erin, can't you do anything right?" The words cut through the warm dining room like winter wind. I felt 23 pairs of eyes on me, my cheeks burning with humiliation. I specifically asked for a perfect dinner. One day. One single day where you needed to accomplish something and you couldn't even roast a turkey properly. "Derek," I started, my voice small. "It's just slightly darker on one side. It's still perfectly good to eat." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Perfectly good. Is that the standard we're setting now?" "Perfectly good. 17 years of marriage, Erin. 17 years where your only job has been taking care of this house and our son, and you're still useless in the kitchen." The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Useless. I saw Margaret's small smile, the one she tried to hide behind her napkin. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Andrew studied his wine glass intently. The children stared with wide eyes, sensing the adult tension, but not understanding it. Remember when you used to think you'd be a doctor? Derek continued, seemingly oblivious to the discomfort he was causing, or perhaps feeding off it. Thank God you didn't pursue that. Can you imagine, if you can't handle a simple turkey, how would you have handled surgery? The turkey is fine. Tyler's voice cut through from his seat halfway down the table. Mom's been cooking for 2 days straight. Derek turned his attention to our son, his expression hardening further. Don't defend her, Tyler. This is exactly the problem. She's made you soft, always making excuses. In the real world, son almost good enough isn't good enough. Like your golf game, Tyler shot back. How was that birdie on the 9th hole? Oh wait, that was Uncle Andrew. You double bogeyed, didn't you? A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the room. Derek's face reddened. We're not talking about golf. We're talking about your mother's inability to complete basic tasks. This is why I handle everything important in this family. The finances, the decisions, everything that actually matters. Because when I leave things to your mother, we end up with burnt turkey and embarrassment. It's not burnt, I said quietly, finding my voice. It's perfectly edible. Everyone's welcome to the white meat if they prefer. Listen to yourself, Derek said, his voice dripping with condescension. Making excuses as always. This is why you never achieved anything, Erin. No follow-through, no attention to detail. 17 years, and you're still the same scattered girl I married, except now you don't even have the excuse of youth. He picked up the carving knife again, shaking his head theatrically as he resumed cutting the turkey. I provide everything for this family. The house, the cars, the private school for Tyler, the comfortable life where you don't have to work. And all I ask in return is that you handle the household. But apparently that's too much to expect. Margaret finally spoke, her voice honeyed with false sympathy. Cooking for large groups is challenging, Derek. Though I did manage Thanksgiving for 30 while working full-time at the bank. It's all about organization and time management. Jennifer added her contribution. Maybe we should have had it catered, Derek. I know you wanted home-cooked, but sometimes it's better to know your limitations. I stood there, hands trembling, as I set down the cranberry sauce, 17 years of swallowed words and suppressed tears threatening to overflow. But I wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. I'd learned long ago that tears only gave Derek more ammunition. Should we eat? Richard suggested, clearly uncomfortable with the scene. Everything else looks wonderful. Yes, Derek said, finally sitting down. Let's salvage what we can of this meal. Erin, why don't you get the rolls? Unless you've burnt those too. I turned toward the kitchen, my legs unsteady. That's when I heard the chair scrape against the floor. Tyler was standing, his face pale but determined, his hands flat on the table. I need to tell everyone something about Dad, he said, his voice carrying across the room with surprising strength. Derek looked up from the turkey, a patronizing smile already forming. What's this son going to share what a great provider I am, how I work so hard for our family? Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. No, Dad. I'm going to share what you've really been doing for the past 3 years. The truth you've been hiding from everyone, especially Mom. The room went completely silent. Derek's smile faltered. Tyler, he said, a warning in his voice. Sit down. This isn't the time or place. When is the time, Dad? When you've destroyed everything, when we're homeless, when Mom finds out from the bank instead of from you. What is he talking about? Margaret asked, her voice sharp. Tyler's hands were shaking, but his voice remained steady. Dad's been living a lie for 3 years. He has a gambling addiction that's destroyed our finances. He's lost over $200,000, mortgaged our house twice without telling Mom, and borrowed from people you really don't want to owe money to. The silence that followed Tyler's announcement was deafening. I watched Derek's face cycle through emotions like a slot machine spinning to a stop. Confusion, anger, fear, and finally settling on desperate denial. Tyler, that's enough. Derek said, his voice low and dangerous. You don't know what you're talking about. But Tyler didn't sit down. Instead, he unlocked his phone and started reading from the screen. November 1st, DraftKings minus $3,000. November 5th, FanDuel minus 4,500. November 10th, BetMGM minus 6,000. Should I continue, Dad? I have screenshots going back 18 months. Margaret stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. Derek, what is this child talking about? It's a misunderstanding, Derek said quickly. Tyler's been snooping where he doesn't belong. These are investment accounts, not what he thinks. Tyler actually laughed, but it was bitter, nothing like his usual warm laugh. Investment accounts? Is that what you call them? Then why did Golden Nugget Online Casino send you a platinum member card? Why did I find letters from 3 different payday loan companies in your office? Why are there texts on your phone from someone named Vic, talking about breaking your legs if you don't pay up? I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands gripped the back of a chair for support. This couldn't be real. We had savings. We had retirement accounts. We had Tyler's college fund that we'd been building since he was born. Show me, Richard demanded, his CEO voice emerging. Show me these screenshots. Tyler walked around the table to his grandfather, holding out his phone. I watched Richard's face grow darker with each swipe. Margaret looked over his shoulder, her perfectly composed face cracking with each image. How did you find this? Derek asked, his facade finally crumbling. You taught me to be thorough, remember, Tyler said. When I was looking for my birth certificate for my driver's permit, I found notices in your office. Overdue mortgage payments. Second mortgage documents Mom never signed, but somehow her signature was on them anyway. I started investigating. Turns out when you use the family computer for your gambling, you leave quite a trail. Andrew had been silent until now, but suddenly he pushed back from the table. The $50,000. You said it was for Erin's shopping addiction. You said she was out of control buying designer clothes and jewelry. My head snapped toward Andrew. What $50,000? 6 months ago. Andrew said, his eyes fixed on Derek. He came to me desperate, said you'd maxed out credit cards on shopping sprees. Said he was too embarrassed to tell Mom and Dad, but he needed help before you bankrupted the family. Jennifer gasped. He borrowed $20,000 from us too. Said it was for Tyler's college tuition deposit. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years, I said, my voice hollow. I've been wearing the same 3 pairs of jeans, the same dresses to every event. Derek controls all the credit cards. I have to show him receipts for groceries. Tyler pulled up more screenshots on his phone. Here's what that money really went to. March Madness betting. He lost $30,000 in one weekend on basketball games. The $50,000 from Uncle Andrew gone in 2 weeks on online poker and sports betting. The investment firm, Derek started, but Tyler cut him off. You mean the investment firm that fired you 6 months ago for embezzling client funds to cover your gambling debts? Yeah, I found that termination letter too. The one where they agreed not to press charges if you left quietly and never worked in finance again. This time I did sink into a chair. 6 months. He'd been pretending to go to work for 6 months. The suits every morning, the briefcase, the stories about deals and mergers, all lies. How have we been paying bills? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. Tyler's expression softened as he looked at me. Mom, you have been paying the bills. You just didn't know it. What are you talking about? Tell her, Dad. Tell her about the overnight customer service job she's been doing, the freelance writing, the online tutoring. Tell her how you've been taking the money she earns and using it to keep us afloat while feeding your addiction. My mind reeled. The exhaustion I'd been feeling, the lost time, the fuzzy memories of late nights I attributed to stress and insomnia. That's insane, Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Tyler pulled up another screen. Here's Mom's Upwork profile, 5-star ratings, hundreds of completed projects, articles about parenting, cooking, home organization. Here's her online tutoring account. She teaches English to students in South Korea every night from midnight to 4 a.m. Here's her customer service login for that telecommunications company. She handles complaint calls on weekends. I stared at the screen, seeing my own photo on profiles I didn't remember creating. But as I looked closer, memories started surfacing. Typing in the dark. Headphones on so I wouldn't wake anyone. Derek bringing me coffee and telling me I was doing great work. I thought they were dreams, stress-induced fantasies where I was contributing financially. "You've been drugging her," Tyler said flatly, "putting something in her evening tea to make her compliant but functional. I watched you do it. Some kind of prescription stimulant mixed with anxiety medication, enough to keep her working but not enough for her to fully remember." The room erupted. Margaret screaming at Derek. Richard threatening to call the police. Jennifer already on her phone with someone, maybe a lawyer. Andrew lunging across the table at his brother. But Derek only had eyes for Tyler. "You ungrateful brat. After everything I've done for you." "Everything you've done?" Tyler's voice cracked with emotion. "You mean like remortgaging our house, like forging Mom's signature on loan documents, like telling everyone she was crazy and incompetent while she was literally keeping us from bankruptcy." "The house," I whispered. Tyler's eyes filled with tears as he looked at me. "We're 3 months from foreclosure, Mom. The second mortgage he took out is in default. The house you inherited from Grandma, the one that was paid off free and clear, is about to be taken by the bank." My grandmother's house. The one thing I had that was truly mine. She'd left it to me when she died 5 years ago, insisting it stay in my name only. Derek had been furious about that detail, but I'd held firm. It was my safety net, my security. Or so I thought. "How?" I asked. "It was in my name only." "Identity theft is surprisingly easy when you live with someone," Tyler said gently. "When you have access to their social security number, their driver's license, their signature on hundreds of other documents to practice from." Derek stood up, his chair falling backward. "This is family business. We don't need to air this here." "Family business?" Margaret's voice was ice cold. "You stole from your own brother. From us. You've been lying to everyone for years." "And the business trips?" Jennifer asked suddenly. "The conferences in Vegas. The client meetings in Atlantic City." Tyler nodded. "Gambling trips. Every single one. Mom would cover for him, telling you all he was working so hard traveling for the family. But she didn't know she was lying. She believed it too." I thought about all those weekends alone with Tyler. Derek coming home exhausted but wired, talking about big deals that were always just about to close. The way he'd be flush with cash one day and desperately angry about money the next. "Show them the texts, Tyler," I said quietly, pieces falling into place in my mind. "The ones from the loan sharks." Everyone turned to look at me. I met Derek's eyes for the first time since this started. "I found your second phone last week," I continued. "The one you hid in the garage. I saw the threats, the photos they sent of our house, of Tyler's school. I was trying to figure out what to do, how to protect us when you announced this dinner. I thought maybe I was misunderstanding, that there was an explanation." Derek's face went white. "You knew. I knew something was wrong. I've known for months that money was disappearing, that bills weren't matching our supposed income, that your stories weren't adding up. But every time I tried to talk to you about it, you'd convince me I was confused, that I was bad with numbers, that I should just trust you." "The investment accounts," Richard said suddenly. "The family trust funds. Derek, tell me you didn't." Derek's silence was answer enough. Andrew was already pulling up his phone, checking accounts. His face went from red to purple. 300,000. The kids' education trusts. They're empty." "Derek managed those accounts," Margaret whispered. "We gave him authority because he was in finance, because we trusted him." Tyler walked over to stand beside me, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. "There's more," he said gently. "Dad's been having affairs. Multiple ones. Using escort services. Spending money we didn't have on other women while telling Mom she was getting fat and unattractive." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of 17 years of manipulation lifting and crushing me simultaneously. The gym memberships weren't about my health. The comments about my appearance weren't about concern. They were about breaking me down so I wouldn't notice the credit card charges to hotels during lunch hours, the unexplained cash withdrawals. The perfume on his clothes, I told myself, was from client meetings. I stood up slowly, my legs surprisingly steady. For the first time in 17 years, I felt clarity cutting through the fog of manipulation and gaslighting. Every face in the room was turned toward me, waiting. Derek's family, who had judged me for years. Derek himself, whose mask had finally slipped completely. And Tyler, my brave, brilliant son, who had risked everything to tell the truth. I need to say something. I began, my voice stronger than I expected. For 17 years, I've sat at tables like this, listening to discussions about my failures. How I couldn't balance career and motherhood like Margaret. How I wasn't accomplished like Jennifer. How I was lucky Derek provided so well, because what would I do without him? Margaret had the grace to look ashamed. Jennifer stared at her plate. But here's what you never knew, I continued. 3 years ago, when Derek's gambling started seriously affecting our finances, I noticed. Bills weren't being paid. Credit cards were maxed out. Our savings were disappearing. When I asked him about it, he convinced me I was having memory problems. Early onset dementia, maybe. Stress-induced confusion. He had me so turned around, I actually went to a doctor to get tested. I pulled out my own phone, having prepared for this possibility, when I found his second phone. The doctor found nothing wrong with my brain, but she did find something interesting. Trace amounts of multiple substances in my blood that shouldn't have been there. Modafinil, Xanax, Adderall. A cocktail designed to make someone functional but suggestible. You knew, Tyler asked, shocked. I suspected, but I needed proof. So I started keeping records of my own. I pulled up photos on my phone. Bank statements I photographed. Recordings of Derek's phone calls I made when he thought I was asleep. Screenshots of his browsing history he didn't know I could access. Derek stepped toward me. Erin, we can discuss this privately. No, I said firmly. We're done discussing things privately. That's how you've controlled this narrative for 17 years. Making me doubt myself. Making everyone think I was incompetent. Turning my own son into a detective because he could see his mother disappearing before his eyes. I turned to address everyone else. Yes, I've been working. I've been multiple jobs. Not because Derek drugged me into it, though he certainly took advantage of my altered state. I started working to build an escape fund. Every dollar I earned, I thought I was hiding from him. Turns out, he was taking it as fast as I could earn it. The house situation, Richard asked. Is it really as bad as Tyler says? Worse, I admitted. I talked to a lawyer last week. The forged documents Derek used for the second mortgage constitute fraud, but proving it will take time we don't have. The bank starts foreclosure proceedings next week. My grandmother's house, the one she worked her entire life to pay for, will be gone because Derek needed money for a poker tournament. We can help, Andrew said immediately. We can stop the foreclosure. I shook my head. I don't want your money. I want everyone to know the truth. Derek hasn't worked in 6 months. The car he drives being repossessed next week. The country club membership he brags about canceled for non-payment. The expensive watch he wears fake. He sold the real one months ago. You're lying, Derek said desperately. This is all twisted. I had some setbacks, sure, but you're making it sound worse than it is. Am I pulled up more evidence on my phone. Here's the email from your company's HR department about the embezzlement investigation. Here's the police report I filed last week about the identity theft. Here's the restraining order paperwork I've prepared, but haven't filed yet, documenting years of emotional and financial abuse. Jennifer's lawyer instincts kicked in. Erin, you need to file those immediately. If he's been drugging you, that's assault. The identity theft, the fraud, these are serious crimes. I know, I said. I was waiting until after today. One last family dinner. One last chance for Derek to come clean on his own. To show some remorse. To think about his son, if not his wife. Derek's face contorted with rage. You set me up. This whole dinner you knew Tyler was going to do this. No, Tyler interjected. She didn't know. I didn't tell her because I knew she'd try to protect you even after everything. That's what she does. She protects everyone but herself. But I'm done watching my mother disappear. I'm done pretending our family is perfect when it's built on lies. Tyler's right, I said. I would have tried to handle this quietly, to save face, to protect Derek's reputation. But I'm done protecting someone who never protected me, who used my love as a weapon against me, who turned my kindness into weakness. I looked directly at Margaret. You asked me once why I never went back to medical school. The truth is, Derek sabotaged my applications. I found the emails last month. He contacted the schools I'd applied to and withdrew my applications, claiming a family emergency. By the time I found out, it was too late to reapply. Margaret's hand covered her mouth in horror. And Jennifer, I continued, remember when you asked why I missed your wedding shower? Derek told you I was too disorganized to remember. The truth is, he never told me about it. He deleted the invitation from our mail and told you I was having one of my scattered days. Oh my God, Jennifer whispered. Andrew, that medical conference you invited me to speak at about being a doctor's spouse, Derek told you I declined because I felt inadequate. Actually, I never knew about it until years later. The room was spinning with revelations, but I wasn't done. And the affairs, I said, my voice steady despite the pain. Yes, I knew about them. Stephanie from his office, the woman at the gym, the escorts when he traveled. I have credit card records for all of it. Hotel rooms charged to our account while I was at home trying to figure out how to pay for groceries on the cash allowance he gave me. Why didn't you leave? Jennifer asked, tears in her eyes. With what money? What job skills? Where would I go with a teenage son and no resources? Every time I tried to save money, it disappeared. Every time I tried to get a job, Derek would sabotage it. He'd call in sick for me, tell employers I was unreliable, show up at interviews to create scenes. That's not true, Derek protested weakly. The Walmart interview 3 years ago, I said. You called them and said I was mentally unstable. The substitute teaching position, you told the school board I had a drinking problem. The receptionist job at the medical clinic, you showed up and made such a scene they called security. Tyler pulled up more evidence on his phone. I recorded that one, Mom. I was in the car. I have video of Dad screaming at the clinic manager about how dare they try to steal his wife from her family duties. The weight of 17 years of systematic destruction was crushing everyone in the room, but I stood taller with each truth revealed. So yes, I've been working overnight jobs. Jobs where Derek couldn't find me and sabotage them. Jobs where I could use a fake name so he couldn't track me down. Every dollar I earned went to keeping us afloat, and I thought I was going crazy because I couldn't remember doing the work clearly. The drugging? Richard said, his face grim. We need to get you to a hospital. Get blood tests. Document everything. I've been documenting for months, I said. I have a safety deposit box Derek doesn't know about. Copies of everything. Financial records, medical tests, photographs of bruises from when he'd grab me too hard during arguments, audio recordings of his threats to take Tyler away if I ever left. You were planning to leave, Derek said, realization dawning. I've been planning to leave for 3 years, I admitted. But every time I got close, you'd sense it somehow. You'd love bomb me with apologies and promises. Or you'd threaten suicide. Or you'd get sick and need care. Always something to keep me trapped. But not anymore, Tyler said firmly. We're leaving tonight. Mom already has an apartment lined up. Her friend from college, the one you said was a bad influence. She's been helping Mom plan her escape for months. What friend? Derek demanded. The one who became a doctor, I said with satisfaction. The one who offered me a job as her practice manager starting next week. The one whose husband is a divorce attorney who's been working my case pro bono. The one you thought you'd successfully driven away 15 years ago, but who never stopped checking on me. Derek's world was crumbling visibly. His family was looking at him like they'd never seen him before. His carefully constructed image of successful provider and devoted husband was in ruins. You can't just leave, he said desperately. The house, the debts, everything's in both our names. Actually, I said, pulling out a folder I'd hidden in the sideboard earlier. The lawyer says otherwise. Identity theft and fraud void those contracts. The forged signatures, the documents you filed without my knowledge, they're criminal acts. You'll be lucky if you don't go to prison. Prison? Margaret gasped. Federal charges for the identity theft. State charges for the fraud. Possible assault charges for the drugging. And that's not including what his former company might do if they decide to press charges for the embezzlement. Andrew stood up, his face dark with rage. I want my $50,000 back. Today. I don't have it, Derek admitted, his voice small. Then you'll sign a legal document acknowledging the debt, Jennifer said, already pulling up documents on her phone. With interest. And a payment plan. Or I'll file charges for fraud since you obtained it under false pretenses. I need help, Derek said, suddenly trying a new tactic. I'm sick. Gambling addiction is a disease. You can't abandon me when I'm sick. Erin, 17 years. We have a son together. Don't you dare, Tyler said, his voice shaking with anger. Don't you dare use me as a manipulation tool. You've been destroying Mom for years. You've stolen my college fund. You've made our home a prison of lies and fear. I'm done being your excuse. The separation papers are already filed, I said, pulling them from the folder. You'll be served officially tomorrow, but I thought you should know today in front of your family so there's no confusion about what's happening. I'm not asking for alimony. I'm not asking for anything except my freedom and full custody of Tyler. You can't take my son, Derek said. I'm 17, Tyler said. I get to choose. And I choose Mom. I choose the parent who worked herself to exhaustion to keep a roof over our heads, who protected me from knowing how bad things were until I was old enough to handle it, who never said a bad word about you despite everything you put her through. This is happening because of you. Derek pointed at Tyler. You've poisoned her against me. No, Dad. You poisoned everything yourself. With your lies, your addiction, your abuse. Mom protected you more than you ever deserved. She kept your secrets. She made excuses for you. She let you maintain your image while she crumbled inside. But I won't let her protect you anymore. The silence that followed was profound. Derek stood at the head of the table, no longer the commanding presence he'd been an hour ago. His shoulders sagged, his face aged 10 years in 10 minutes. The perfectly carved turkey sat forgotten, growing cold alongside the elaborate meal I'd prepared. Margaret was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. Derek, how could you? Your own family. Your wife. Your child. I can explain. Derek started, but Richard cut him off. There is no explanation that makes this acceptable, his father said, the CEO voice now turned against his son. You've stolen from your siblings. You've defrauded your parents. You've destroyed your wife's life and traumatized your son. And for what, gambling? You don't understand the pressure, Derek said, grasping for sympathy. The expectations. Having to be perfect. Having to provide. The stress of maintaining this lifestyle. The lifestyle. Andrew laughed bitterly. You mean the lifestyle funded by money you stole from everyone in this room? The lifestyle built on Erin's overnight labor while you slept peacefully. Jennifer had been typing on her phone throughout the confrontation. She looked up, her lawyer face firmly in place. I've just sent emails to everyone documenting this conversation. Derek, I strongly advise you to get legal representation immediately. And therapy. Real therapy, not the fake appointments you've been using as cover for casino trips. You tracked those too? Derek asked Tyler, deflated. I tracked everything, Tyler replied. Every lie, every betrayal, every dollar spent, every affair. I have spreadsheets, Dad. Detailed documentation going back 2 years. Mom protected you, but I was building a case. Why? Derek asked, and for the first time he sounded genuinely confused. Why would you do this to me? Tyler's composure finally cracked, tears streaming down his face. Because I watched you destroy the most amazing person I know piece by piece. Because I heard Mom crying in the bathroom after you'd spend an hour telling her how useless she was. Because I saw her checking her arm in the mirror after you grabbed her too hard. Because she would make herself smaller and smaller trying not to trigger your anger. I never hit her, Derek protested. Physical violence isn't the only kind of abuse, I said quietly. You beat me down with words, with isolation, with financial control, with constant criticism, with gaslighting that made me question my own reality. That's abuse, Derek. And it's over. Margaret stood up and walked around the table to where I sat. To my complete shock, she pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I saw the signs, the way you changed over the years, the light going out of your eyes. I thought you were weak. I never imagined my son was the one breaking you. One by one, the family members who had judged me for years offered apologies and support. Jennifer promised legal help. Andrew assured me the foreclosure would be stopped. Richard said he'd handle Derek's debts to keep the scandal from affecting Tyler's future. Even the children old enough to understand something terrible had happened came to hug me. Derek watched his family abandon him for the truth, and something in him finally snapped. Fine, you want to leave, leave. But you'll get nothing. I'll declare bankruptcy. I'll disappear. You'll be a single mother with no money, no house, nothing. I'll have my freedom, I said simply. I'll have my son. I'll have my self-respect. And I'll have the skills I've developed over 3 years of secret work. That's more than I had with you. And she'll have us, Margaret said firmly, surprising everyone. I failed you as a mother-in-law, Erin. I let my pride in my son blind me to what he was doing. But not anymore. Your family, you and Tyler. Derek is the one who's lost his place at this table. You're choosing her over me, Derek asked his mother, incredulous. I'm choosing truth over lies, Margaret replied. Integrity over deception. The victim over the abuser. Yes, Derek, I'm choosing Erin. Tyler walked over to his father, and for a moment I thought he might offer comfort. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket. A flash drive. This has everything, Tyler said. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. I made copies. Mom has one. Her lawyer has one. I have one in a safety deposit box. If you try to hurt Mom anymore, if you violate the restraining order, if you attempt to hide assets or declare false bankruptcy, this goes to the FBI. Derek took the flash drive with shaking hands. You're my son. How could you do this to me? I learned from you, Dad, Tyler said sadly. You taught me to be thorough, to document everything, to always have leverage. I just used your lessons against you. We should go, I said, standing up. Tyler and I have packing to do. Where will you go? Derek asked, one last attempt at concern. Somewhere you can't hurt us anymore, I replied. As Tyler and I gathered our things, the family began to disperse. The beautiful Thanksgiving dinner sat untouched, a monument to the facade we'd maintained for so long. Derek stood alone at the head of the table, surrounded by the ruins of the life he'd built on lies. Jennifer stopped me at the door. Erin. I know it doesn't mean much now, but I always envied you. The way Tyler looks at you, the devotion you showed to family. I thought it was weakness. I see now it was strength I could never match. Andrew handed me a check. This isn't charity. It's restitution. Derek stole from you more than anyone. Consider this a down payment on what you're owed. Even Richard's stern patriarch, who'd barely spoken 10 words to me in 17 years, took my hand. You're stronger than all of us, Erin. We sat at Derek's table and let him fool us. You lived with him and survived. That takes courage I didn't know existed. As we walked to the car, Tyler carrying the bags we'd secretly packed that morning, I turned back to look at the house one more time. Derek stood in the window watching us leave. For a moment, just a fleeting second, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. The charming college student with big dreams and bigger promises. But that man had never really existed. He was just another performance, another manipulation. You okay, Mom? Tyler asked as we got in the car. I will be, I said, and for the first time in 17 years I meant it. As we drove away, Tyler pulled out his phone and showed me one more thing: a college acceptance letter that had arrived that morning. Early admission to Northwestern. Full scholarship. Pre-med program. How? I asked, tears streaming down my face. I wrote about you in my essay, he said. About watching someone rebuild themselves while being torn down. About strength disguised as submission. About the woman who gave up her dreams of being a doctor but never stopped healing everyone around her. Tyler, I'm so proud of you. I learned from you, Mom. How to survive. How to protect others. How to document truth. How to wait for the right moment. And how to escape when that moment comes. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Derek had agreed to everything rather than face criminal charges. The house my grandmother left me was saved thanks to Andrew's intervention and Jennifer's legal expertise. I started working as a practice manager at my friend's medical clinic, using the organizational skills I developed running a household under impossible circumstances. Tyler thrived at Northwestern, calling me every week to share his adventures in pre-med classes. He was particularly excited about his psychology electives, saying he wanted to understand how people like his father operated and how their victims could be helped. Derek disappeared into mandated therapy and Gamblers Anonymous, living with his parents under strict supervision. I heard through Margaret, who called monthly to check on us, that he'd maintained sobriety for 60 days before relapsing. Then 30 days, then 90. The cycle of addiction continuing without me there to clean up the consequences. The Thanksgiving confrontation became family legend told differently by each person who was there. But for Tyler and me, it was simpler. It was the day we stopped living in Derek's fiction and started writing our own truth. The day my son became my hero. The day I finally understood that being called useless by someone who used me for everything meant I was anything but. I think about that moment often when Derek called me useless in front of his family. The word that was meant to break me became the key to my freedom. Because Tyler heard it and decided enough was enough. Sometimes the greatest gift a child can give their parent is the courage to see themselves through clearer eyes. Looking back, I realized the turkey wasn't even burnt. It was just imperfect, like everything real in life. Derek demanded perfection because flaws revealed truth, and truth was his greatest enemy. But that slightly darker turkey became the catalyst for revealing 17 years of deception. Sometimes the smallest imperfections expose the biggest lies. Today I'm pursuing my psychology degree online while working full-time. It's never too late to reclaim your dreams, even if they look different than you originally imagined. Tyler jokes that we'll graduate together, him with his MD and me with my PhD. Mother and son, both doctors, just like I dreamed all those years ago. The lesson I carry with me every day is simple but profound. When someone calls you useless, look at what they're using you for. Chances are you're the one holding everything together while they're the one creating chaos. Your usefulness to them is precisely what they're afraid of losing, so they convince you it doesn't exist. To anyone watching who sees themselves in my story, who sits at family dinners enduring humiliation, who questions their worth because someone who claims to love them tells them they're worthless, please know this: you are not crazy. You are not useless. You are not alone. And with the right support, the right moment, and sometimes an unexpected ally, you can escape. My son gave me the greatest gift at Thanksgiving. Not just freedom from Derek, but the truth about myself. I wasn't useless. I was used. There's a difference, and understanding that difference saved my life. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for witnessing my journey. I'm curious to know, what would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had someone stand up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not useless, just being used. Thank you for listening to my truth. And remember, sometimes the people we protect the most become our unexpected heroes. May you find your own strength in truth, just as I found mine.